Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Um, thank God for another day. Um, Welcome to another episode of, of course, Frontline News. We are live this week.
Mm.
We're not a recorded version
It's
of
us.
us.
Mm, mm.
We will be joined by our other, uh, I guess, partner in the struggle very shortly, Yolanda Pulley. But I am joined this afternoon with my sister, someone that I think, I mean, if I had to have a blood sister, I'm an only child, by the way, Donna. If I had to have a blood sister, I'd be honored to have you as my sister. So, um, you know, uh, family welcome Donna Tebron Green to the show.
I'm so honored. But you know what, Jason? I think if you ask Yolanda and Julius if they would choose, like, I think they probably would have given me to you as your sister, like at one point. I really do. I don't know where is Yolanda at because she would have so much to say on that subject.
Well, she's out in the streets, of course, always busy. Her phone has been, I mean, since this morning has been nonstop going on. And matter of fact, um, we dealt with a tragedy. I'm not sure if too many folks have heard. And we want folks to share this episode. Please share this episode on your timelines, on your groups, because this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, the month of May. And we're going to dedicate the rest of the this month to having a discussion in reference to mental health. But I know that Yolanda um, has been dealing with some families that have been dealing with some mental health challenges, including a young man who took his life this weekend on social media, um, and tragic circumstance. You know, there was definitely some signs that the young man was in trouble, but we really feel the system uh, didn't handle it properly because they looked at the fact that it was a man with a gun to his head, and acted on the threat, on the violent threat of the gun, but was really not trained or really not prepared. They were ill prepared in reference to dealing with the mental health and trying to coach that person off the ledge, talk that person off the ledge. They just were not capable of doing that, not this current police department. And so Yolanda is currently working with the family of that tragedy to try to find some forward steps, to try to move forward from this, from this tragedy that took place with their child. But Donna has just been a really, really troublesome weekend, and it's already starting already this week with trouble. Unfortunately, the city has run out of money, folks, in reference to
Mhm.
helping these families coming out of the pandemic. And now they're scrambling to try to serve families that still are being affected by COVID and are having issues in reference to paying their rents.
And
And
you
there
know what,
was,
Jason? You know what I said as far as the domino effect. It's like we are experiencing the domino effect. And it's
Mhm.
like, we continue to go through the thought process of thinking that it's going to change, and it's not going to change. It's not going to change. The devastation is going to get even realer. And it's like, what can you, and without promoting any type of fear, because realistically we have to get through it. But, to look at what we're doing, if we continue in this process, where do you think we're going to be at in another 4 to 5 years?
Yeah. And what's crazy is there's weird dynamics that are taking places that's taking place in our city that's making it even harder for services to be provided. Now, I don't, you know, hold the truth back that I am a Afro Latino. I am Puerto Rican descent. I have mixed heritage. My mom's, before she passed away, had an opportunity to do our family tree, and was able to trace back some Moorish ancestry, as well as some Spaniard ancestry. So, I understand some of the dynamics from both communities, but We have a serious issue here, like for instance in Baltimore, to where we have a bunch of folks that are migrating from the South. Many of them are migrating illegally from, they're coming from El Salvador, Ecuador, Colombia, Cuba, you name it. In some cases, they're finding folks are coming from Africa. They're finding ways to get onto ships to get into Latin America, and then they're coming up the coastlines and coming over the border through Mexico. And what's happening is this influx of illegal immigration. We're finding that a lot of folks are being shipped out to sanctuary cities, and Baltimore, due to an executive order that was signed by Stephanie Rowland Blake, is a sanctuary city. And what we're seeing is that we have families here that are legacy families. Generationally, they've been here since the early 1900s. They're citizens, and they're being denied services because we have folks that are coming in illegally that are getting, pushed to the front of the line and are getting housing and are getting welfare benefits and are getting iPhones. We heard that they're getting iPhones at the border.
iPhone,
Um, yeah, just for coming over the border, they're being handed an iPhone to communicate as soon as they come in, and they're jumping to the front of the line in reference to getting housing, services, and things of that here in this city. Plus, there were several hundred Ukrainians that came in as well. Because they're in a war right now in Ukraine with Russia, and those families have also been pushed to the front of the line in reference to housing, and other organizations, charitable organizations, have jumped in place to help these families. While we have families with children in Baltimore City, and the city is saying the only solution that we have for you is you must go to a code blue shelter and wait in line and get on a list in order to get services, in order to get some sort of help and remedy in reference to your homelessness issue.
hmm.
This is a sad state of affairs right now here in Baltimore City, and it's affecting legacy families, families that, you know, have been really failed by the system intergenerationally. So not just one or two generations, but from what we're understanding, intergenerationally, these families have been let down by the city. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the second half of our show, because there's a great documentary that I watched this week. I don't know if folks had an opportunity to watch the Will Smith documentary. It's called Amend, Fight for America, where it really kind of goes through and talks about the 14th Amendment, and through all its incarnations throughout history. When our forefathers had first put the 14th Amendment, that all men are created equal and are equally protected under the law. Really and truly, when you look throughout history, we have never been protected under the law. And here it is, you see now those legacy residents that, are part of the descendants of enslaved people in this country, are still, in some cases, are not equal and are separated from, the protections of being a naturalized citizen. They're not getting the protections that they're supposed to be getting. But first, let's, I guess, talk a little bit about mental health. And you being a life coach, Donna. Again, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. We're seeing so much in the community in reference to mental health, and we know that mental health, really, especially in the Black community, is really looked at as a stigma. It's
I
really
was
looked
I
at.
was going to say I was going to say because we first had to start with the stigma, the stigma, and that's one thing a lot of people don't understand. I went through a huge mental health crisis myself. With me being trained and knowing that people is telling me, we don't feel like we're not taught how to feel. And one thing with mental health, I realized if we don't pay attention to our mental health, that's when it goes ill. And I was chasing something through life that I couldn't even explain because I couldn't even explain the feelings.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
What's it?
I just wanted to make sure you was paying attention. You still there?
Yeah. No, I'm trying to pull up this research real quick because they did a research just recently with the Pew Research Center, in reference to the growing mental health issues, and they're seeing, they're looking at before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and after the pandemic,
Yeah, but you know
and
what the issue is? Because it's now being looked at. Prior to it wasn't being looked at. So the issues have always been there. The stigmas has always been there. So we have to, refocus. We have to all refocus. And instead of, I was talking to Yolanda, we have people that we're very close to. And it's like in your family, when you have the crazy one or the one that's considered the crazy one, you don't want to be the one. That, and then when you start going through those thoughts or whatever in your head, the last thing you're going to do is go to your family and say, oh, well, I feel the same way. Like, because you don't want nobody looking at you a certain type of way. But what do we do with those feelings? We go and try to numb it with drugs and alcohol and, the other things that we're addicted
chase the
to.
pain away. Chase
We
the
check,
pain away.
and we try, and the
Hmm.
biggest word being a life coach that I hear all the time is numb. Is numb, and it's a triggering word for me because that's what I did for a long time in my life. I literally tried to do anything to just numb it. I just didn't want to feel the way that the crazy aunt or the crazy uncle was feeling. Don't nobody discuss that. Don't nobody talk about that. And because of that stigma, it's going to become a bigger issue if we don't want to have uncomfortable conversations.
Donna, I forgot to just let everyone know. Please, support our fine sponsors on the bottom as they go through. Even if you just pick one or two services to patronize or to purchase something, again, support the Black USA dot news team. Um, uh, Donnie Glover has, really put together a platform for the community that we can all share this type of information, and have these type of discussions. And again, if you'd like to join in, I will share the link by all means. So we'd love to have a two-way conversation with folks,
Yeah.
especially if you have an expertise in the mental health community. We'd love to hear your take on it in reference to the mental health community. I am going to share that in the comments right now, and you guys can easily join in on whatever platform you are watching this from right now. We'll let you in once we see you backstage. We'll let you in, and you can come join the conversation. Donna, so what I saw with this Pew Research, we were talking about this today on the radio show, Patrick Henderson's Meet the People on WOLB radio. They were saying that 4 out of 10 U.S. adults, 41%, have experienced high levels of psychological distress at least once since the early stages of the coronavirus outbreak, and that's pretty severe. 41%, of young people are feeling some sort of psychological distress. We know that a lot of it is because of the shutdown and the schools, at home learning, things of that nature. But what's interesting is after the pandemic, um, it really hasn't changed that much. April 25th, an article just came out to update the Pew research that was just taking out, and they're saying now that the numbers still fall around 37%. They're saying where folks are regularly struggling with mental health issues post pandemic. Um, so, what could you think is the causes of us, one, having these psychological, stresses, and why do you think that the numbers aren't coming down after the pandemic? Things are opening up now. They're telling us the world is good. Go out. The pandemic's been lifted globally. Why do you
I,
feel
honest,
again?
yeah, I honestly feel like it's because we're talking about it. We're talking about it, and that's why the numbers are being shown and reported because it was already there. And unfortunately, the onslaught of additional stress, that we've not been able to process. You've had multiple people, including ourselves, that lost somebody over and over and over and over again. We had the COVID. We had people just dropping. No one knew what was going on. We have like the murderous rate that's going on around us. We have just being unhealthy in ourselves, period. And then yet another thing is on top of that. And then a lot of us don't get proper medical care. So we don't know what our blood pressure is. We don't know what our sugar, whether or not we have sugar diabetes. And then all of this stuff, this dis-ease, everything on top of each other. It's like that. So what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do you do? Like, we have to continue talking about
Right.
it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to absolutely address it without the stigmas.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I see that now more than ever. I'm a technology person, so I see now more than ever, all this evolution and different products and services, especially because of the pandemic. And it's now more easier to download an app and to seek psychiatric help more than ever. I mean, we live in this world where everything is Ubertized. You click on it and you order it. Why do you feel that in some cases? Because according to the Pew research, traditional as well as now new non-traditional means of psychiatric care are just not being utilized. Why is it that, and especially we know this in the African American community, we don't seek help, even though it's easily accessible now? You can
It's
speak
not
to a
normal.
therapist in your bathroom,
It's not normal. We've always been told in our community that it's a white people thing. And like about 15 years ago, I sought out a therapist myself because I knew the thoughts I was having, and everybody looked at me as being the strong one. And then when I couldn't go to just anybody, or I just couldn't explain myself without feeling like this person going to judge me, or this person is going to be biased, or this person is and then you tend to start shutting down. So I literally went and sought out a stranger, but I realized that one of the things I had to do was something that I wasn't used to doing. I had to be completely honest. So
Wow.
that meant removing a mask, and that meant being vulnerable, and that meant feeling some things, and that meant some tears flowing, and that meant like not caring what the stigma was behind what I was searching for. And once I was able to put all of that aside, I realized that it was me. All the things that I was going through, and the battles and the fights and all the enemies that I created, a lot of times it was all within here, because a lot of things that I was trained to keep it inside. And then that I keep telling people, like, the reason why I approach things immediately now, because once I let it live in here and plant a seed, oh my God, it gets, oh,
Right. Right.
Jason,
Right. Right.
it's so
Right.
bad. And some of the thoughts, if I explained it to you, how it plays out in my head, you would
Right.
literally look at me
Right.
like,
Right.
girl, you crazy. And that's why I tell people I'm okay with the
Right.
word crazy, because some of my
Right.
thoughts, I know if somebody said it to me, I would say, oh, you crazy.
Right. It's funny that you say that because you are your sister's sibling, by the way, because her mind works in similar ways. If you plant something in her head, it's gonna fester and grow, and it becomes and it becomes this monstrous thing in her mind. So trust me,
It's huge.
I
And then
get
it's
it.
the most negative as it could get. Oh, it's
Hmm.
so bad. And then once the situation, like, after a while, when everything plays out, you like, wait a minute, that's all? That was it? In
Yeah.
my head,
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
died or something. I don't know. Like, it gets really bad.
It it
But
it yeah. It's interesting. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration of America, it says that um, the facts on mental health, you know, it says that the issues can affect anyone in reference to mental health. 1 out of 5 American adults experience a mental health condition within a given year. 1 in 6 young people have experienced a major depressive episode. 1 in 20 Americans have lived with a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia, bipolarism disorder, or major depression. Um, and it says that additionally, suicide is the leading cause of death in America. Not heart disease, not cancer, not sugar diabetes. It says here the number one cause of death in the United States is suicide. And it says that, in fact, it was the second leading cause of death for young people ages 10 to 24. And suicide has accounted for a loss of more than 45,979 lives in 2020, nearly double the number of lives lost to homicide and addiction. Um,
Mm.
this is serious, and I'm glad that we're in mental health awareness month to try to really, like you said, we got to have these conversations, and we have to
Mhm.
try to break the stigmas, especially in the Black community. We have to understand that there's nothing wrong, and I know that me, Yolanda, and us, and even we've talked about this. We hate using the word mental health issues. We like to call it mental wellness. We have to work on our mental wellness. So we have to take some of these past stigmas off of our mental wellness. And just like we worry about our financial wellness and we
Yep.
worry about our health wellness,
Mhm.
we need to do a mental wellness check,
Yep.
and get regular checkups. And in some cases, like you take your car to go get a tune up and an oil change,
Mhm.
from time to time when we're dealing with issues, we need to go get that oil change. We need to get that
Yep.
tune up, and it's so
I'm glad
important that
you
we break
mentioned
the
that,
stigma.
Jason, because that's really important. Like it's like sometimes we throw a word around, and maybe we need to find a better word, something that's more something that can relate better, or something that's more acceptable. Because at this point, if the stigma isn't taken away, then people aren't going to feel comfortable enough, and then they'll go to their last resort. For me, I've been there. I just asked my sister, I said, have you ever looked at me as ever being suicidal? And she's like, no. And she said it with so much
Wow.
confidence. And the thing that hurts me is that I cried out a lot. My way of crying out is the same way that you see a lot of other people crying out. Over partying, over, like it's like over drinking, over like everything was over.
Masking, masking,
Exactly. And
masking.
it's easier that way, especially when you can nut or you feel like you're numbing it. But when you wake up in the morning or whenever the drink is gone, it's still there. It's still there. It's very expensive. It's an expensive thing when you're trying to numb something that's always going to be there. So I literally tell everyone, in order to heal it, you got to feel it. And
Yeah,
sometimes it doesn't feel good. Like a lot of times it don't feel good. And it's like sometimes we get in our head, and a lot of times we make it a lot bigger. Like I convinced myself at one time that I was more valuable to my kids dead than alive. I'm
wow,
like, well,
wow,
they'll be better off. They'll just get over it. But then I
wow.
realized that I would give my kids that option out. If you're going through too much or things is too heavy, and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you could just off yourself, like, just take the easy way out, because and it's like, the fear of, but we've always battled with the fear of the unknown, but
Yeah,
we've just never let it be the final fear.
yeah, yeah. Well, we again, want to uh just ask folks to share this program as they see it. We know that a lot of times I look at our past videos, folks are watching it after the show. Folks are just coming home from work and stuff during this time, but we're asking that you please share this. And we really want folks to kind of be familiar with the numbers now. We had this conversation today. We want to get out of the mentality of dialing 911 in reference to mental health and suicide issues. We really want to get into utilizing the new national hotline that's going to provide more direct mental health related, mental wellness, suicide prevention type of services. We know that anytime that you dial 911, in these situations, like what happened this weekend with the young man who committed suicide on social media. The police came out with the SWAT team and the helicopters, and they had basically the negotiator, a police negotiator, who definitely is not trained in mental health, and in some cases they really what could have been a prevention of a suicide, because the father kept saying, look, even if I lose my life in the process, let me go talk to my son. But they had the whole area cordoned off, and they wouldn't allow the father to try to talk the child off the ledge. We know that when we dial 911 for these type of situations, everyone remembers Tyree Coleon, and how he was killed after a phone call, and a police officer came out, and he was having a mental health related episode, and they shot him dead in the process. We know that anytime that we call 911 in reference to these type of issues, that the chance of someone losing their life um, is greater with the interaction of the police, because they're just not really trained to assess properly and to deal with these issues. So we really want to get into the habit of utilizing the now national hotline, which will provide you local services, will provide you local resources. So please, by all means, lock in that number, 988. It's the national suicide number. I know that, most of the time we have 911 kind of pre-programmed in our brains, but we really need to know that now there is a national number that's going to get you more direct services. And it does deal with mental health issues as well as suicide prevention issues, all in a one-stop 24-hour number. So, whenever you hear someone say, oh, such and such, our cousin such and such, is having a mental breakdown, 988 is the number to remember. Just like 911, 988 is the number. And please share that, and please put that, into your memory portion of your brain, and share that information that there is a national mental health and suicide prevention hotline. Anything else you want to add to this piece?
In addition, like if sometimes people don't want to talk to a stranger, they want to talk to somebody that's closer. So you could always reach out to us. We're available 24/7, 7 days a week. If you or yourself or someone is experiencing any type of mental health, any type of situation, please reach out to us at 443-355-8014. We are available 24/7 if you need us to come to your home or wherever the location is. We do assess the situation for safety, and we proceed with caution. However, we are always available. Please reach out to us.
Even if you just want to drop us an email, maybe you don't want to talk in person, you can text through that number as well. And like Donna said, it is 24 hours a day. Yes, we do take calls at 3, 4 in the morning to talk people off the ledge. We understand that struggle. We all have a story. I am not here without a struggle. I once tried to commit suicide myself. I wasn't very successful at it. I ended
Thank
up in
God.
Maryland General. Yeah, thank the creator. But I think
Mhm.
that in many cases, the creator, the creator has the ability to step in, but sometimes we have to walk through those journeys. We have to, go through the shadow and the valley of death. Um, One, to fear no evil, but at the same time, to also have those experiences to be able to go to someone else and have those conversations with, and say, I know exactly how you're feeling. I've been
Yep.
through there before. Someone told me one time, and you remind me of this, Donna, that folks like yourself, folks like Yolanda and me, and there's others out there that I know that are true advocates, and they have life experience. They have some battle scars of life in them. That we are gatekeepers,
Mm.
and what gatekeepers are folks that are supposed to be on the outside of the pearly gates, um, helping those to navigate those from making the wrong choices, and ending up having to go see the creator or the maker, prematurely in life. And it's us gatekeepers that we have been through experiences ourselves that
Hmm.
almost put us through that gate. Whether we was in the streets deep and been shot at multiple times, I've been shot, I've been
Hmm.
stabbed. We all been through kind of those situations. We had these light troubles and
Battle wounds.
right. We had these issues where we've had these life troubles where we just wanted to throw our hands up in the air and give up on life.
Yeah.
But we've made it through it. We persevered through it somehow. And it's our experiences that we are willing to help others to understand how to navigate through those struggles. So,
Yeah.
and I thank you, my sister, because again, you have been instrumental. I've have personally witnessed you help women and help men in the process to get a better understanding of what their role is in life, what their purpose is in life. And I thank you for being our life coach. I
And
think it's
each
one of
time,
your.
you know what, they actually help me.
Hmm.
Each time and each story and each chapter, because a lot of people say this is not my story. It's not your story. It's just a
Yeah.
part of. It's a chapter in your life, and as soon as you close that chapter, that's when you get to write another one. As
Hmm.
long as you keep
Hmm.
that chapter open and writing it and crying about it, and
Hmm.
and not allowing our Creator to make the decisions for you, you keeping that chapter open longer than you actually want it open. So sometimes
Yeah.
all you have to
Yeah.
do is just close the chapter. That's it. Just keep it. Hi, how you doing, Miss Stacy Campbell? Good stuff.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for watching. Again, please share the information. If you do know anybody that is dealing with mental wellness challenges or is dealing with possible thoughts of suicide, there is hope. There is light. There is a rainbow through
Hmm.
the dark clouds and the rain. They just need help in many cases, seeing it and understanding it. And it's interesting, Donna, that you said that about how when you help people sometimes, you've been through these adversities. When you help people sometimes,
Hmm.
it's kind of like the neosporum. It's kind of like the healing of your own
The
wound.
healing, yeah.
you know
It's the
um
peroxide. You cleaning your
that's right,
wounds.
that's right, that's right,
It's
that's
like
right.
that. I told you about the fallen angel syndrome. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
trying to stitch them, trying to stitch
Wings.
them wings back
Yeah,
on there so
yeah,
we can fly them back up out of here.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
it's
yeah,
like saving grace, though, Jason. Like
yeah,
it's like, dude, someone taking the time to do it for us.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and watching, it's a lot of evil going on, but it's a whole heck of a lot of good going on too.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we definitely like to. When I get a chance after the show, I definitely will post the information on Murder Inc. I think you're right. I think in some cases, even the posts that are on there sometimes truly show signs of mental unwellness, and even some folks are, when they see certain examples, because I know they've been sharing things like the suicide and things like in the murders and homicides. I think that there's other folks that are looking at that. And I think that's the curse of social media. You know what I mean? Social media
A
has
lot
the
of
potential,
information.
and it has the potential of doing so much good, but there's so much room for wrong
Yeah.
at the same time. So it's scary sometimes because again, the gentleman that committed suicide this weekend, was live streaming it, was live streaming it. Um, and that's sad that so many people probably have seen that, are probably traumatized. And I just think that that person that was already on the ledge may get thoughts and ideas from this. So she's right. I think it's important that we share this information on Murder Inc. That there are resources available.
Yeah, but Jason, it like that you talk about like the sites like that, the amount of people that show how normal it is for a lot of the things that happens on these sites make you know that it's a lot more mental unwellness going on. Because the
Yeah,
fact that me moving away from a lot of the trauma in the city made me realize that it wasn't normal. The things that I grew up thinking was normal, hearing gunshots and always involved in something, or somebody, your neighbor involved in something, the fighting, the cussing, hollering, the constant sirens. And I thought that was normal. Like, who wouldn't have thought it was normal? It's just that, sometimes you walk over a body, sometimes you don't. Who don't go through that? Well, a lot of people don't go through that. And I didn't
Yeah,
realize just how abnormal it was until I removed myself from it. It's
yeah,
like, wow,
yeah, yeah.
wow.
Well,
And
again, we
that's absolutely PTSD. The constantly it's PTSD. Every
yeah.
time I see a cop, I'm jumping. Every time.
Well, we're trying to make sure that folks, if they need the resource, again, there is a national hotline that has started. 988 is the number. Don't call 911 because we know every time that our community interacts with 911, it could be a death sentence.
Mm.
Um, seek some trained professionals. Um, again, 8988 is the number to call for the 24-hour mental health and suicide prevention hotline. So give them a call. I've already had some folks that have testified to utilizing that service, and they have found it to be a pleasurable experience and a plethora of resources and information to be able to utilize from. So please,
Yeah.
and then if you have any experience in it, we'd love to hear from you guys back in reference to it. I think we do have one more comment in reference to this. I'm going to pull that comment up. Um, and Ms. Campbell said that I grew up in a country, so moving, to the
County.
city was shocking to. I'm sorry, the county. So moving to the city was a shock to me. I definitely understand what you mean about being shocked when you see. I think she's saying things from another lens.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 and that's interesting because I actually have another subject that I wanted to move on to, and it's interesting because um, we talk about the city dynamics, and so I had an opportunity, and I want to share this with everyone. I had an opportunity to watch this documentary this week, and I definitely suggest that folks watch this documentary um, produced by, I believe, Jada and Will, and Will is narrating. And I know there's some folks that have some issues with Will and all the stuff, the controversy, the slap on the Oscar, and whatever have you. But I think that the information, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get this one banner off of the screen here. I think that the information that they share is so pertinent, Donna. So all of our battles within our community have all been waged utilizing the 14th Amendment. When you look at
Mm.
voters' rights, civil rights, and each time that the 14th Amendment was presented,
Jason,
um,
do me a favor.
mhm.
Can you quote the 14th Amendment?
Can I quote the four? Not offhand, so I definitely have to look it
Pull
up.
it,
I
pull
know
it up,
some
pull
of
it
it.
up, because we
I
need
know,
to know exactly what
I know.
amendment you're
Okay,
referring to.
right,
Because
right,
a lot of
right,
times we throw out the amendments and we assume that others
right.
are, they're educated and knowing exactly what amendment it is. So let's just
Mhm,
educate
right.
all of us.
Perfect. So the 14th Amendment decides who is a citizen and the protections that you get as a citizen under the law. So it says here, passed in June of 1866 and ratified 2 years later on July 1868, the 14th Amendment grants citizens to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including formerly enslaved people, and provides all citizens with equal protection under the law.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and now what we know is that when it was passed in 1866, um, that unfortunately the southern states utilized it to say, oh, well, at first, oh, well, you know, you guys are actually, 3/5, of a
Human.
citizen, right, of a human. So these things don't apply to you. And there has been many kind of incarnations, or put it like this, adoption
Mm-hmm.
of uh, white supremacists of this. amendment, where they have taken it in many cases and said, okay, well, based on that same rule that you want to say everyone is protected equally under the law, we're just going to go and do this in the process. The 14th Amendment, a lot of folks say, is what really led to Jim Crow segregated laws, to where folks said, okay, well, we'll recognize you as a citizen because you were born here, or your other your second and third generation was born here in enslavement, but you're now free based on the Emancipation of Proclamation. But what's interesting is that we don't have to honor you as a private citizen. We don't have to respect those rights. That may be true in reference to the state is concerned and what the state does to you, but as private citizens, we don't have to honor that. And you watched as, these unfortunately white supremacists in our country, constantly tried to utilize the 14th Amendment against us. And you even hear of these terms, separate but equal. And separate but equal laws was, okay, well, we're equal. We're all citizens. Yes. We're all free. Yes. We all have inalienable rights, but you ain't got to come in my restaurant. You ain't got to drink from my water fountain. You ain't got to come.
And it's the ones that continue to approve or sit back silently, because it's still happening. For people to think that it's all, no, it's not, because I've been a lot of places and, they didn't outright tell me get out, but I felt like the looks and the attitude was outright get out. And fortunately, I realized how much I had to lose now. So instead of giving them my money and fighting for them to have my money, bye. Because I realized what they respect from us is our money. So you think I'm gonna fight to sit in their restaurant to give them my money? Nah.
What's interesting is that I still see signs of that separate but equal philosophy. Driving out to Carroll County, I was talking about this with you. Every billboard going up through Carroll County on what's the road, Donna? What's the main road?
Route 140.
Route 140. So when you ride up Route 140, this is how segregated we are, but supposed to be equal, right? Not one billboard on that whole highway has a Black person on it. There's realtors, there's people enjoying food restaurants, there's MAGA, drug rehabilitation services, and all you see is white folks, white folks, white folks, white folks. You don't see not one billboard with a Black person on it. That shows you that even today in 2023, that we are separate, but you're equal. According to them, you're equal. You can do what you want. You want a billboard, go in your community and get a billboard with Black people on it. But here in Carroll County, we're going to separate ourselves, and we're only going to portray the things that we want to see, that is the likeness of our people. And it's weird to see, because when you come in the city, really and truly, the city is not designed that way. The city, I see billboards. Yes, there's more Black billboards here because we are a majority Black city, but you do see throughout the Beltway and throughout the city limits, you do see white faces, Asians, and all kinds of billboards. But there is definitely a discrimination when it comes to advertising going out to Carroll County. And it's obvious.
I'm talking about the restaurants too. You still bump into that. Like you will bump into that. You will walk into a restaurant and they will look at you like, what? And I'll look at them like, huh? Bye. Not getting my money. I'm sorry.
But it's interesting. It's interesting though that, again, in this day and age, you still see these signs of the old Jim Crow. And a lot of folks say that it's Jim Crow Jr. and Jim Crow III that has incarnated. And really and truly, based on this documentary, we're only 60 years out from the legendary Civil Rights Act. 60 years out. Next year makes 60 years. 1964 was when the landmark Civil Rights Act was passed. We are 160 years from the Emancipation of Proclamation.
Mm.
160 years, we are still not free, and we are still as much separated in many cases. They play a clip in this documentary, and I wish I could play a little bit of it. They play a clip in this documentary where you see Donald Trump talking about, let's bring back Gone with the Wind. And if you know anything about Birth of a Nation and Gone with the Wind, it is probably the most racist movie that was ever put out. Gone with the Wind, and of course, you know, the movie with the Ku Klux Klan in it, Birth of a Nation,
Mm-hmm.
that actually was played at the White House, was featured at the White House, and the president at the time said, this is the greatest movie I ever saw. And they actually talk about in the documentary that it really birthed it. The Ku Klux Klan was already around when that movie came out, Birth of a Nation, but they said
Mm-hmm.
that it just a plague of the land in reference to the sprouting up of the Ku Klux Klan had increased after Birth of a Nation was
But of
played at the
course,
White
because
House.
they made it look so nice. They put a little oomph on it. They made it a little sexy because people are now
Hollywood, right, right,
approving it. Like now
right,
they got it on the screen, so why not?
yeah,
That's just
yeah,
like with the Trump he put it all on the screen. That's why you got all of
yeah,
these
yeah,
people that's willing to take off their hoods now.
yeah,
They've
yeah,
been sitting in
yeah.
front of you all this time. You still got the ones that's still too nervous to take their hood off. But you
Mm-hmm,
got the ones that are
mm-hmm,
standing there in your face with their hood on.
mm-hmm. And, and
Mm.
and I was telling Yolanda that when I was watching this documentary, I was saying that when you look at these cities, because there was a Jim Crow era here in Baltimore. Contrary to belief, most folks may think that, the Jim Crow was only in the South. No, there was a Jim Crow Baltimore. And if you do a search, type in Jim Crow Baltimore City, and they will tell you about policies that were created that actually created the segregated red line communities that we see
It's
now.
all the part. It's all the part of that little line, though. Like the North
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, like it's all the part of that line. It
Yeah,
comes straight
Mason
on through.
Dixon. Mason
Yep, it
Dixon. We
comes
are the
straight. And
Mason
you know what's
Dixon.
sad, Jason? Because all the way that line, this is the line. I'm right by the Mason Dixon line. I'm by Gettysburg. Like I feel like everything comes full
Mm-hmm.
circle. And if
Mm-hmm.
you look at the whole history of
Mm-hmm.
through our ancestry, like that whole slave ship line, that was us. Like where we end up at
Mm-hmm.
right now, this is us. It just shows where you land
Mm-hmm.
at, where you end at. So what do you
Mm-hmm.
do with that information? Like what do we do with it? I
I'm not
told you
sure.
earlier
I'm
that,
not sure.
remember I was telling you, I said, I feel like the flame was passed to us because a lot of our parents couldn't handle it because they introduced crack and cocaine and they introduced a lot of the partying drugs to try to
Mm-hmm.
slow us down. So a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
parents died because of a lot of that stuff that was introduced.
Mm-hmm.
So now the
Mm-hmm.
flame is in our hands. So who do we pass it on next? Who gets the
Mm-hmm.
flame next? Who's going to get it?
Mm-hmm.
Who
Mm-hmm.
do we pass it to? Because right now I'm saying a bunch of enabled minimalists, like we can't go with all the
Mm-hmm.
it gets okay when you want to simplify some things,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't simplify everything. That is just not
Yeah.
we can't do it. We can't do it.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense. Like so we have to find somebody that we trust, a generation, we have to raise them up enough that we can pass on the flame because if we pass it on now, somebody's gonna let it go out.
Yeah.
It goes.
Yes. Miss Campbell says that Lexington Market's starting to look like Towson Town Center. Lexington Market's been gentrified now. They've changed. They've
You know
changed the
what, Miss
whole
Stacy?
dynamics of.
They forgot that that's still downtown Baltimore, and black folk and the other
Mm-hmm.
folk that's disgruntled,
Mm-hmm.
they can still get down there,
Mm-hmm.
and they gonna
Mm-hmm.
make that Lexington Market
Mm-hmm.
look like Towson
Mm-hmm.
Town Center now. You been to
Yeah.
Towson Town
Yeah.
Center?
Yeah, but you can't remove them dope fiends from around the neighborhood though. they
Nope,
they ain't going nowhere. But
nope.
what's interesting about this documentary, and I want to share some facts really quick, right? So a lot of folks, were taught in high school that Abraham Lincoln was the person responsible for the Emancipation of Proclamation. He freed the enslaved people. That's what we know of. But a lot of folks don't realize that there was a discussion during the time that the South was separating. And when the South was separating, uh, the discussion was that Lincoln wanted to save the Union, and he was willing to sacrifice black people in the reference of saving the Union. And we look at,
Mhm.
we were taught that Abraham Lincoln was the freedom fighter that led us to freedom, but
And we
technically
was
there
going
was
to
a
be sacrificed.
right. But we were actually there. The conversation really originally started where he invited a bunch of black leaders, including Frederick Douglass at the time, to the White House. And they had stenographers and all kinds of stuff recording this conversation. But the conversation was that Abraham Lincoln had suggested to Frederick Douglass that we leave in order to preserve the Union, that black folks leave and
Mm.
go somewhere else to assimilate or to live. And the suggestion was Central America, and Will Smith goes, "Per K," like why? Like why would you want to do that to us? Like here it is, we're thinking the whole time that Abraham Lincoln was this abolitionist, this
But come
person that
on now,
really
they had
believed,
convinced us that Christopher Columbus was like, come on,
right, discovered
you know,
America, right, right, right,
exactly. Like we
right,
celebrated it. We
right,
was out of school.
right,
We had a good old time with his birth. With him,
right,
uh, him uh, discovering America.
right, right,
Like, come on
right,
now. That's what
right,
they do when they take our history away.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
DeSantis, like that mess that he's doing, where so you make it uncomfortable to talk about our history because somebody might feel uncomfortable.
yeah,
Well, it's uncomfortable for us too. But
correct.
if we don't know it, if it's not taught, then anybody can use that information
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
devastate anybody. So the fact of the
Hmm.
matter is, the truth don't need no support.
Hmm. And
It
and
don't need it.
Miss Campbell, you're absolutely right. He was trying to preserve the Union at the expense of enslaved people and at the
Hmm.
expense of Africans living here in America. And he was willing to ship us out to Central America. So you'd have had a black Central America, if he'd have had his way. But Frederick Douglass and them fought him on this. And in some cases, of course, the war really started to sprout out. The Civil War really started to sprout out. And it was Frederick Douglass and a bunch of other leaders from our community that really pushed Abraham Lincoln to understand that no, you should allow us to fight for our freedom. You should allow us to serve for our country. That if we can
Hmm.
serve our country and shed blood for our country, then we would be owed the biggest thing that we would be owed is citizenship in the process of it. And most of us know the history. We ended up building uh, regiments like the Fighting 54th Regiment. That was one of the the winners of a lot of wars and battles during the Civil War. That was black soldiers, the Fighting 54th Regiment. And we were known as a beast of fighters and soldiers, and that's because we had everything to lose. We had our freedom, we had our pride in our country and the
But you know
soil that
what,
we wanted to
Jason?
call home.
You know what?
Hmm.
It's all new to me because I never heard of them. Guess why? Because they don't teach it.
Yeah, yeah,
They
they
don't
don't
talk
teach
about
it.
it.
That's
So
why
we
it's so
absolutely
important to
we have,
teach
and
African studies.
that's why the PBTS Leadership Academy has to come. We have
Yeah,
to teach our
yeah,
history. We have to. We
yes,
have to teach the importance of who we were and who we
yes,
are and who we will continue to be and history. Because if we don't, we're going to be thinking that all we are
yes,
is like is drug dealers
yeah.
and
Pimp,
beautiful bodies and
pimps, hoes, pimps,
exactly,
hoes,
like
gangbangers. Right, right.
like what the music teach right now, we can't do
Yeah,
that. We have to put our history in writing. We have to put it
yeah,
in a book, and we have to keep talking about it
yeah.
until somebody
Yeah.
else is talking about it.
That's why I suggest family, if you have an opportunity with your children, sit down with your children and watch the 13th Amendment. It's available online, and watch the amend the Fight for America, which really talks about the 14th Amendment, which decides that which codified that we are citizens by naturalization, and that we are supposed to be protected with equal rights under the law. Many of your battles have been won, and they tell this in the documentary Amend. Many of your battles have been won fighting, utilizing the 14th Amendment. Brown versus the Board of Education, women's rights, equal marriage rights. All of these battles have voters' rights, housing discrimination. All of these things have been fought in the Supreme Court utilizing the 14th Amendment. We need to understand how strong our Constitution is, and how to utilize our Constitution to preserve our rights. I consider myself a constitutionalist. I love the Constitution. I don't necessarily appreciate the forefathers. And I know that the forefathers were writing it to protect and preserve their way of life. But now that we're here and we get to utilize it, I'm going to stand on it and utilize it and slap the system all in the face with my constitutional rights as much as possible. And I think that you need to teach your children as well how to utilize, how to use that Constitution as a protective mechanism of their rights, their afforded rights, and their freedoms, you know. Yeah. And Stacey Campbell, we appreciate you just providing so much commentary in reference to your experiences. And it says that you worked at a school literally referred to slaves as African workers. Wow. 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 I shouldn't have been shocked, but I was.
I'm shocked now, Miss Campbell.
Right. It was a blatant sugarcoat. With that vague description, you could be describing a CNA, you know. You know, but it's real though. It's real. And again, if you watch Amend, you will see how white America has, you know, distorted the afforded freedoms that we all are supposed to have, how they have utilized it to protect their rights while trampling.
I was just looking this on Netflix. I'm gonna check that out. Yeah. Netflix.
Yeah. Amend. And maybe again we'll have another conversation in reference to it, because I think that, you know, some of the most important things that we really should be having conversation on is how to protect our community, how to fight back against this system. We know that it's no longer a Jim Crow era, but most folks are saying we're now in Jim Crow Junior, or Jim Crow.
Jim McCrow. Jim McCrow is out. Jim.
Yeah.
It's the late growth too.
Yeah. So we have to understand what these rights mean to us. And family, as we get ready to wrap up here, and I don't know what happened to our fearless leader there, but our organization is People Empowered by the Struggle. If you need us, you can easily reach us at 443-355-8014. We are a 24-hour-a-day operation. We don't take off for your birthday, my birthday, nor the resurrection or Jesus' birthday. So give us a call if you need us. Go visit our website and find out the information in reference to what we do, the services that we provide. Go to our website and check it out. And if you can, donate. We do appreciate your donations. We don't get any funding from the city. A lot of times we're doing the work for the city and helping folks navigate through the city, but we get absolutely nothing in return. We live basically off of just sheer love and the sweat equity that we put in to the community. So we appreciate your donations. So until next time, each and every Monday at 6 to 7 p.m., tune into Frontline News. Please share. We love y'all, and we will see y'all next time. Yolanda, we miss you. We don't know where you're at.
We miss you, Yolanda. Call us. Good night, guys.
Good night, family.
Good night.